In this episode, we shift from the excitement around artificial intelligence, AI, to the harder question that serious students have to face early. What can go wrong, who can be affected, and why organizations cannot treat governance like a bonus feature they add later if they happen to have time. New learners often meet AI through impressive examples, fast demonstrations, and promises of efficiency, creativity, and smarter decision-making. So it is easy to assume the main challenge is simply learning how useful the technology can be. That is only part of the story. AI can create value, but it can also produce mistakes, unfair outcomes, privacy problems, unsafe behavior, hidden dependencies, and bad decisions that spread faster and farther than many people expect. Once a system starts shaping what people see, what options they receive, how they are scored, or how a business acts, the consequences are no longer theoretical. That is why understanding risk and harm is not a side topic around the edges of AI governance. It is the reason AI governance exists at all. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A helpful place to begin is by separating the idea of risk from the idea of harm, because the two are related but not identical. Risk is the possibility that something bad may happen, while harm is the actual negative effect when that possibility becomes real for a person, a group, an organization, or the public. If a model might produce biased hiring recommendations, that is a risk. If qualified applicants are screened out unfairly because of that model, that is harm. This distinction matters because governance is not only about reacting after damage has already occurred. It is about noticing where problems could emerge, reducing the chance they will happen, and limiting the impact if they do. Many beginners assume a system is acceptable until a disaster becomes obvious, but responsible AI work begins much earlier. A mature organization learns to ask what kinds of harm are plausible before the system is trusted, scaled, marketed, or woven into important decisions. Part of what makes AI different from many familiar technologies is that its behavior is often shaped by patterns and data rather than by simple, fixed instructions that humans can trace from start to finish with ease. Even when a system performs well overall, it may still fail in specific cases, behave unevenly across groups, or respond unpredictably when conditions change. A model trained on past examples is always carrying assumptions from those examples into the future, whether the organization notices those assumptions or not. That is one source of risk. Another is scale. If a human employee makes a bad decision, the damage may be limited to a small number of cases. But if an AI system is used across thousands or millions of interactions, the same type of mistake can spread very quickly. Speed, reach, and apparent confidence make AI systems powerful, but those same qualities can turn small design weaknesses into large governance problems. Data is one of the biggest sources of both risk and harm in AI, and beginners need to treat that as a central lesson rather than a technical footnote. A system learns or operates based on the information it receives, so if the data is incomplete, skewed, outdated, mislabeled, invasive, or poorly governed, the system may reflect those weaknesses in its outputs. A model trained mostly on one population may perform worse for another. A tool built from historical decisions may preserve older patterns of unfairness even if nobody intended to reproduce them. Privacy problems can emerge when organizations collect too much information, use it for purposes people did not reasonably expect, or fail to control where sensitive data flows. Even accurate data can create risk when it is used in the wrong context or combined in ways that reveal more than people understood they were giving away. For governance students, the major point is clear. AI does not rise above the conditions of its data. It inherits them, depends on them, and can amplify their weaknesses. Another important source of harm comes from performance problems, because an AI system does not need to be malicious to be damaging. It only needs to be wrong in a setting where being wrong matters. Some systems produce false positives, meaning they incorrectly flag a person, event, or transaction as risky or suspicious. Others produce false negatives, meaning they missed the thing they were supposed to catch. A system can also appear strong during testing and then perform worse after deployment because the world changes, user behavior shifts, or the model is used in a setting different from the one it was designed for. Generative systems may invent facts, produce unsupported summaries, or present uncertain output in a fluent and convincing way that makes users trust it more than they should. For a beginner, one of the most important realizations is that even a highly accurate system can still be inappropriate if the remaining errors fall hardest on the wrong people or occur in decisions with serious consequences. Harms become even more serious when the people affected have limited ability to see the system, understand the system, or challenge the system. A person may not know that AI helped rank their job application, influenced a fraud review, shaped what content they were shown, or contributed to whether a claim received extra scrutiny. When people cannot meaningfully detect automated influence, they also struggle to contest mistakes or ask for a second look. That creates a dignity problem as well as a fairness problem. Human beings generally expect important decisions to be explainable, reviewable, and open to challenge when something seems wrong. If a system quietly pushes people into categories, deprioritizes them, or limits their opportunities without clear notice or recourse, the harm is not only economic or procedural. It can also affect trust, agency, and the basic sense that one is being treated as a person rather than as a pattern in a machine-driven process. Some harms are direct and individual, but others spread across groups in quieter ways that are easy to overlook at first. If an AI system performs worse for people with certain accents, skin tones, writing styles, disabilities, or life circumstances, the result may be unequal treatment even when no one explicitly instructed the system to discriminate. A customer support tool that misunderstands some users more often than others may create unequal access to help. A screening model that penalizes non-traditional work histories may close doors for people whose paths already differ from the majority. A content moderation system that misreads certain communities more often may silence legitimate expression while allowing other harmful content to stay visible. These patterns matter because governance is not only about average performance. It is about distribution of impact. A system can look effective in the aggregate while still placing a heavier burden on specific groups, and that uneven burden is one of the clearest ways harm enters AI use at scale. Security and safety concerns add another layer, because AI systems can be misused, manipulated, or placed into settings where errors create broader consequences. A model that helps classify information or guide action can become dangerous if attackers influence its inputs, exploit weak controls, or use the tool itself to scale fraud, impersonation, or social engineering. A system that seems safe in a limited environment may behave differently when connected to real workflows, larger datasets, or sensitive decisions. In physical or operational settings, flawed outputs can affect safety, reliability, and response quality. In digital settings, AI can make attacks more persuasive, more personalized, and faster to generate. That means governance has to account for both accidental failure and deliberate abuse. Students sometimes hear risk and immediately think only about ethics or compliance, but security belongs here too. AI risk includes the possibility that systems are not only inaccurate or unfair, but also exploitable in ways that increase exposure for users, customers, employees, and the business itself. A common thread running through many AI harms is lack of transparency and weak accountability. When an organization cannot clearly explain what a system is used for, what data supports it, what limitations are known, who approved it, or who is responsible when something goes wrong, risk grows quickly. People start assuming someone else checked the system, someone else validated the output, or someone else owns the decision to keep using it. That diffusion of responsibility is dangerous because it allows harm to continue without a clear stopping point. Transparency does not mean every user must understand every technical detail, but it does mean there should be enough clarity for appropriate oversight, informed use, and meaningful challenge when needed. Accountability means specific people and functions carry defined responsibilities before, during, and after deployment. Without those anchors, organizations drift into a situation where powerful tools influence important outcomes while no one is truly answerable for their impact. There is also a serious organizational side to AI harm. And this is one reason governance leaders must care even when they are not building models themselves. A poorly governed system can create legal exposure, regulatory scrutiny, customer complaints, reputational damage, contract disputes, internal confusion, and wasted spending on tools that were deployed too quickly or without a clear purpose. Employees may lose confidence in leadership if they feel AI is being introduced carelessly or used to monitor, score, or reshape work without transparency. Partners may hesitate to share data or integrate systems if the organization cannot show responsible controls. Senior leaders may think the biggest risk is a public scandal, but many governance failures begin as ordinary business mistakes. Unclear ownership, vague acceptable use, weak testing, poor documentation, or blind trust in vendor claims. By the time the harm becomes visible from the outside, the internal governance gaps have usually existed for quite a while. The wider social dimension matters too, because AI systems are increasingly woven into communication, commerce, employment, public services, media, and everyday decision-making. A harmful system does not need to affect every person directly to shape society. It may influence what people believe, what opportunities they can reach, how institutions allocate attention, or which voices are made more visible and more credible. Generative tools can accelerate misinformation, synthetic media, and persuasive manipulation at a scale that was previously harder to achieve. Recommendation systems can reinforce narrow feedback loops that intensify division or reward sensational material over careful truth. Automated scoring and classification can normalize the idea that important judgments should be delegated to opaque systems without sufficient challenge. When students hear that AI harm can be societal, the point is not to become abstract or dramatic. The point is to recognize that scale changes everything. Tools used across large populations can shape norms, expectations, and trust in ways that reach far beyond one faulty output. Many organizations fall into trouble because they mistake good intentions for adequate governance. A team may believe the system is useful, the vendor may sound confident, the rollout may seem modest, and leadership may assume that nothing truly serious is at stake. Yet systems often expand beyond their original purpose. A tool first introduced for convenience may later influence higher stakes choices. An internal assistant may begin handling more sensitive information than anyone anticipated. A model used for one audience may quietly be applied to another. Humans may begin relying on a system more heavily once it becomes familiar, even if nobody formally decided to increase that reliance. This is one reason governance cannot be optional. Optional governance is usually late governance, and late governance often means problems are discovered only after the system has already shaped behavior, decisions, or expectations. Responsible organizations do not wait for proof of damage before creating oversight. They assume from the start that any tool affecting people, data, or decisions deserves structured thought and clear guardrails. Governance, at a high level, is the set of rules, responsibilities, review processes, and decision practices that help an organization use AI in a disciplined way. It exists so that the organization can decide what kinds of systems are acceptable, what risks require extra scrutiny, who has authority at different stages, what documentation should exist, when human review is necessary, and how ongoing monitoring will work after launch. Governance is not the enemy of innovation, and it is not a pile of paperwork created by people who do not understand technology. Good governance is what keeps innovation from drifting into preventable harm. It creates a way to ask sensible questions before scale, makes mistakes harder to reverse. It also helps organizations match oversight to stakes, which is critical because not every AI use case carries the same level of sensitivity. The absence of governance does not create freedom. More often, it creates confusion, hidden risk, and reactive decision-making after trust has already been damaged. When governance is missing, organizations usually discover the cost in an unpleasant order. First, teams move quickly because the tool seems valuable and the risks seem manageable or remote. Then edge cases appear, users behave differently than expected, or someone notices that outputs are not as fair, safe, accurate, or private as originally assumed. Next comes uncertainty about who should respond, whether the problem is isolated or systemic, and whether the organization even has enough visibility into the tools used to understand what happened. By that point, leaders are no longer making calm, deliberate decisions. They are managing confusion, pressure, and trust erosion. Governance changes that pattern by moving serious thinking earlier in the life cycle. It does not guarantee perfection, because no system is free from uncertainty, but it makes the organization more capable of seeing problems sooner, responding more coherently, and reducing the chance that preventable harms will spread unchecked across people, operations, or markets. As you leave this lesson, keep one practical idea in mind. AI risk is the possibility of negative outcomes. AI harm is the real-world damage those outcomes can create. And governance is the discipline that stands between early warning signs and preventable failure. The reason governance cannot be optional is not because every AI system is automatically dangerous, but because any system that influences people, information, choices, or decisions can produce consequences that are hard to see, hard to reverse, and unfairly distributed if no one is clearly watching. Strong governance begins with honest recognition that capability and risk grow together. Once you understand that, you stop asking whether governance is slowing progress and start asking how any responsible organization could possibly use AI at meaningful scale without it. That shift in thinking is one of the most important foundations for the rest of the AIGP journey.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.